I'm Jeannie from Tyrion's Landing, a podcast member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the one you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
You are listening to the Starling Tribune, a podcast dedicated to the Arrow TV show.
I am the Green Arrow.
This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, situations, and stories are the properties of Time Warner. I am the Oracle, and this is your Tribune.
Welcome back to Earth 2's favorite newspaper, the Starling Tribune. I am your chief editor tonight. My name is SP, and your other award-winning reporters for this episode number 214 of the Starling Tribune are Chris.
Morning, 4587. Beautiful morning.
You gotta, tap the metal thing.
You don't want me to tap my mic. That'd be bad.
No.
People yell at me when I do that.
Yeah, I do. So good call there. And Michelle.
Oh, thank God you monologue.
And thus goes the coffee pot. This podcast is recorded on Thursday, October 17th, 2018, live via... Oh, no. Got to back up. This podcast is recorded on Thursday, October 18th, 2018, live via geeks.live.
That's right, and we're back discussing the main show. We're talking Arrow this week, as well as news, interviews, articles, and announcements that have dropped in the last week that could and probably will impact future episodes of Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Constantine, God knows what else, and maybe even some stuff they're trying to backdoor pilot and sneak in. There's a lot of stuff we might spoil.
If you're new to the show, thank you for searching us out on the internet and joining us. After the show, you can check out our content at GonnaGeek.com. We can also find other geeky videos, podcasts, and articles.
Thanks, award-winning reporters. Now, Michelle, why don't you go ahead and break down the Season 7 premiere episode for us?
Sure thing. It's called Inmate 4587. It aired Monday, October 15th, 2018. Directed by one of our favorites, James Bamford. He's directed 10 episodes of Arrow and 1 Supergirl. Written by new showrunner Beth Schwartz. She's also written 25 episodes of Arrow and 2 Legends. And Oscar Balderrama, who's written 16 episodes of Arrow.
I just want to say hi to the Arrow Writers Room. We appreciate what you guys are doing this season. Now, we start our discussion with the show by talking about the ratings, but we don't just talk about the ratings of the Arrow show or the show that we're reviewing for the week. We go over all the CW, DC comic book shows for the week. And this week, we'll start with Sunday on the 14th of October, 2018. Supergirl aired their premiere episode, American Alien, to a live rating of 1.52. Monday, this episode of Arrow, Inmate 4587, aired to a live rating of 1.43. And Tuesday, the 16th of October, Flash aired their second episode of the 5th season, titled Block, to a live rating of 1.69. And then following Flash, Black Lightning had their second episode of the second season, The Book of Consequences, Chapter 2, Black Jesus Blues, to a live rating of 1.02. Now, we had a short discussion before the podcast about these ratings. Now, Chris, what did you say about the ratings?
These are all down across the board, which is kind of surprising. I mean, normally Flash is around, a 2.1, 2.2, something like that. So there's other stuff going on, evidently, or people are just using the app more or buying digital copies more. And Michelle had mentioned Sunday was potentially problematic for Supergirl because in addition to the NFL, there was an awards show, wasn't there?
Yes. I think it was the American Music Awards. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, so between football and an awards show, that's a tough spot for Supergirl right now. I mean, granted, there's not awards shows every week and football's over in December, but right now, that probably hurts. I mean, remember, they used to make a big deal when The Walking Dead beat Sunday Night Football.
That's right, they did. And the ratings were a lot higher for both back then, too.
Yes.
Now, Michelle, I have not seen the season premiere of Flash or Black Lightning. I have seen the season premiere of Supergirl Arrow. It's not because I don't want to. It's just because I haven't had time. Because something called Doctor Who came out, and they not only had the original 2-hour pilot, but they also had a extra addition to our viewing later on, and I watched all that kind of through my viewing schedule in disarray. I will catch up, but just want to point out something that you said to me, that the season premiere of Black Lightning was incredible, and the Supergirl premiere was pretty good as far as I was concerned. Still have some concerns there, but it was pretty good for a premiere. How did you like the Flash premiere?
I think it's interesting seeing Nora basically be Barry from season 1. It's really like looking in a mirror, and it's like, wow, Barry was kind of annoying. He was. And there were some great moments where he was remembering the teachings that he got from Wells and echoing that when they did the airplane and such. It's kind of cute.
All right, we'll talk more about all of those series as we go along, but this night is dedicated. We're going to focus, at least initially, on Arrow. Now, we talk about the overall theme for the episode quite a bit, and we relate that to the title, in this case, Inmate 4587. So, Michelle, did the title meet the overall theme of the episode?
Well, Oliver's in prison, and he is Inmate 4587. So, yes, indeed. And he's been in prison for 5 months. It hasn't been an easy 5 months. He's trying to keep his head down, but there are people who are trying to make trouble for him. And we actually get a trio back. That was great to see. And that's, of course, Derek Sampson, Bronze Tiger, and Brick. And, right away, this episode had a lot of action scenes, and we got like a prison fight, didn't we, Chris?
We did, and it was brutal, and you could tell that even though they're having that fight, Oliver's not fighting back as hard as you might think, or as efficiently and brutal, and there might be a reason. But he is a sneaky bugger and slips a blade in on Michael Jai White's character, so he gets put in the hole.
And it works, and that causes problems later on.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Some of the action involves, let's just go straight through it, the fake Green Arrow. That's who I'm calling it, the FGA.
Can we call him
Shows
Faux
it.
Arrow or Pharaoh or something like that? I'm trying to come up with something catchy so we can trend it.
That's a good, it's a good point, because is it really Faux Arrow? Because at the end of last season, we saw Oliver give an additional suit to Diggle, and they came to a conclusion that there could be more than one person in the suit. So is it really fake Arrow, or, is that just what we're calling it because it's not Oliver?
Well, it's a green suit.
Yeah, so it could be, for all intents and purposes, it could be the Green Arrow that's in Star City right now.
Well, right now I'm calling him fake Green Arrow.
Okay, we'll go with that on the Starling Tribune. Michelle has decreed it. It is faux Green Arrow.
Because he decides to wrap up a guy named Stint and leaves him at the police station. And then we find out who the new captain is, don't we, SP?
We do. And we didn't go into a lot of speculation throughout the off season like we probably could have, but you knew they had to fill some key spots. They had to fill the mayor's spot. They had to fill the DA spot. They had to fill the captain's spot. And they probably have to fill the deputy mayor slot if they want to go into that. But the captain is somebody that I am glad to see in the captain's spot. It's Dinah, because she deserves it. She's a good police person. She was a detective to begin with.
Wasn't she just fired, though?
Well, but she was fired because the people that were working in the police department were on the payroll of Dragon.
She led a riot against the police and started her own independent police force. She's a mischief man. No, you're completely right. I was just going on a rant.
So I don't know if you can count that or not, but she deserves the position. If anybody in Star City deserves the position, I think she deserves the position. And she is acting like the captain. However, we did see snippets of the old Dinah when she was really against any vigilanteism whatsoever. And we've seen her when she has her mind set on something that might not be in the spirit of what we want to see on the show. So, yeah, I think she did that. That's just my take.
Yeah, because she's coming up against resistance when it comes to Renee. Renee has opened up a boxing gym / self-defense course, and he's in the Glades. And the Glades, again, it's sort of like that forgotten part of Star City. It got impacted with the undertaking in season 1. It really hasn't recovered. People in the Glades aren't feeling very hopeful. And one of Renee's students goes to buy a gun. And of course, Renee tries to, stop it. And Renee's still's got some moves, doesn't he, SP?
Yes, he does. I watched this episode twice, full disclaimer. I watched it Tuesday night and I watched it right before we record it here on Thursday night. Didn't watch it live Monday night because we're podcasting on Gonna Geek when it actually airs. So I was watching the fight the second time, and unless they've done some tremendous cuts, it is actually the actor that is doing the stunts on that little fight there. So my hat goes off to the actor for all of that little scene there. And it was a continuous scene. We're back to the great fighting that Bam Bam was famous for, bringing it when he was the fight choreographer back in like season 1 and 2, bringing it to the show. And when I saw that, I was like, wow. Now, I'm not the biggest Wild Dog fan out there. And I don't think Chris is either, but you got to admit he had some moves during that fight.
Chris was until last season. I think if they can get you back to the Renee that's not season 6 Renee, he'll be likable again. And the Renee we had this season so far is a Renee I kind of like, and I'm hoping it sticks around. And we didn't get one Haas this episode. Did you notice that? Not a single Haas.
Thank you, writers, for not putting Haas in there.
I miss
really
Haas. Bring back Haas.
Hashtag Hossless. So that is fun to note that this is the Renee that we started to enjoy with the gun control episode, because it went over the loss of his wife back then. And we really got to know him as a character. And I like having this one back. Now, remember, last season, the showrunner and the writers, I'll just say the writers, I have no idea if they had anything to do with it, miscalculated on what we thought about other Team Arrow. At the end of the season, it just took way too long to get back to it. But at the end of the season, that last episode, everybody was reconciled. Oliver apologized to Wild Dog. Wild Dog apologized to Oliver. They had that moment where he called his daughter while he thought he was going to die in the laser minefield that had all the bombs in the warehouse. So you really understood where both characters were coming from at that point. And both characters understood each other, too, during that season finale. It just took too long to get there from where they were at the beginning of the season. So I don't know if this is definitely the wrong Renee, but we can agree just to forget last season and hope that this Renee is better.
Well, I kind of enjoy the fact that the Renee we see here is the only one of New Team Arrow who's like, Oliver left this in our hands. He left the legacy of protecting the city to us, and we're not doing it. We could be doing more. I like the fact that Renee is the one that he has that conversation with Dinah where he goes, well, we could do more. And I like that. That kind of goes back to the Renee we met earlier on before the whole turn on Oliver to save his kid, which we can not talk about that now. We talked about it in depth last season. It's more of the Renee who wants to do good, who has a responsibility to the city. And like I said, I love the fact that he's the one that goes, look, we can do more. And to do more, he puts the mask back on. And not like the new mask he got, like the old hockey mask. I love it.
Yeah, I liked that because, it starts again with that gun sale. The fake Green Arrow comes along and, burns up the guns and it kind of gives hope. And Renee and Dinah go head to head because Dinah is wanting to, catch this new vigilante, doesn't want Watson, the FBI, to think that Oliver put this in motion, that it's them because they don't want to lose their immunity deal. But here's that, stints there. They're making that illegal deal. And instead of a briefcase of money, we now get cryptocurrency. And the cops are there. And then finally, the fake Green Arrow shows up and then they rush in. And I really liked how we got that great shot where he got Stint and like with that rope arrow and just like threw him over. We got that nice like slow-mo arc and everything.
God,
And then the
that
cops
would hurt like hell too, getting an arrow through your shoulder and getting flung around.
Yeah, and the cops come in and surround him. And then Wild Dog actually shows up. And my favorite move is, of course, how the fake Green Arrow flips his way down into where, you know, like, I guess like a hole or whatever, and gets to run away. I loved all the flip kicks. Didn't you, Chris?
Oh, I love a flip kick. I'm all about that. I love it almost as much as I love slapping water to learn how to be a ninja, basically. I miss slapping water, guys. That's still one of my favorite things.
Well, go get yourself a bowl and start slapping water during the podcast.
I got my cup right here. If I just fill it up to the top, can I sit here and splash the whole time?
You could probably slap it with your pinky.
I could use... I mean, there's enough space there I could at least get 3 fingers to hit the top of that. So I'll do like the scout symbol. And
I mean, this guy even had like that Green Arrow hero pose, like when he landed on the ground and stuff. I mean, he's got some moves.
I'm sure we'll get to it later, but I'm curious who everyone thinks this is. I can't give my theory yet because we haven't gotten to that point of the show. But if you're in the chat room, let us know. And if you're tweeting, if you want, you can also tweet us at Starling Tribune with your ideas after the podcast comes out. Who do you think it is?
And then for me, of course, the best sequence, I like how they intercut Felicity, who is a barista. And part of me wonders if she called up Hot Girl to get some tips before she became a barista, you know, Aaron undercover.
She probably got a reference from Hot Girl to get that job.
Why do they have to keep doing the barista gag? I can't help myself from using it now.
So they never used the term barista with Felicity, but the Star City Police they did say that they have a horrible barista. I don't think it was Felicity because wasn't she in a different city?
Yeah, she's in a different city.
Yeah, so Felicity wasn't the bad barista or the good barista or whatever. She was a barista somewhere else. But yeah, there were 2 baristas that were discussed in this episode.
So Felicity as Aaron with the pink hair and all the nose piercings. Her and William are in witness protection, being protected by Argus. And Oliver is in the shower, and we get this great intercut because Diaz finds Felicity and breaks into their place. And Diaz sends this guy and sends in like about 7 other people. I think I counted when, like at the end of the fight where that big guy comes along and hits Oliver, I paused and I counted, I think, around 7 bodies before the big guy came in. But first, we keep talking about how Felicity doesn't know how to fight back. I think she did pretty good. That's where the line comes in. You know, thank God you monologue. She was able to tell William to, you know, run. And she did okay against Diaz, right, SP? You're one of the ones that keeps saying Felicity needs training.
Yeah, so the only thing I can think of is that Argus is having a little bit of sparring lessons with her, probably William too, while they are in protective custody. I mean, they're witness protection, basically, is what they're in. So that's the only thing I can think of, because she doesn't come out of nowhere and do what she does against the dragon. Now, remember, the dragon took out a whole heck of a lot of people last season. It wasn't Kirk Acevedo that was actually doing the stunts. I mean, you could clearly tell that, but the dude is still ripped. And regardless, the character of Dragon is a formidable fighter, and Felicity, she ended up losing in the end. I mean, she won because Argus came to the rescue. We didn't see that part of it, but that's what they insinuated with the dialogue. But she held her own for long enough that William would have gotten away, and she would have done as much as she could against him and hurt him. It wasn't like she was just holding her own, but Dragon was hurt during that fight. He'll heal, but she did a great job. I will admit, she did a good job. The only thing I can think of is Argus was training her.
If she didn't get that fireplace poker, she was dead. I think it was she got lucky and that Diaz was overconfident, because it didn't seem like there was any coordinated kind of defense. It was run away, then tussle over something, then see a fireplace poker and beat him with it. In fact, I got the implication more that after her conversation with Oliver at the end when she was going to fight back, that was going to finally be the impetus to be like, yeah, I need to fight, versus when we had season 2 where they sort of started down that path for a little bit. But yeah, she's got to learn how to defend herself, and you would hope that Argus has been doing something with them, but I don't know. Yeah, she needs to be able to fight, especially if there's someone who wants to kill you.
Chris, have you ever taken any self-defense classes?
Not for ages.
Okay, so the premise of self-defense, I won't get really technical, but you want to distract, you want to hurt, and you want to incapacitate in those ways. And she did the first part by throwing the coffee pot and distracting him. She closed in and was able to hurt him, and then she tried to incapacitate him. I think she was doing what she was taught all along, which my hat is off to her for that. And yeah, some of the case, it's luck because you use the tools that you have around you.
I think she did better than season 1 Felicity would do.
Oh, yeah.
At the very least, she's learned through osmosis to be better than season 1 Felicity at fighting.
She was slapping water at some point in time.
That's her training regimen. Argus gave her a bucket and said, here, slap this. This will teach you how to fight. What? It could happen. Look how Roy got trained. Look how Ollie got trained. Okay. They slapped some water, and they learned while they did it.
For new listeners to Starling Tribune, this goes back to the beginning of Arrow, where Oliver was trained how to fight by slapping a bowl of water on Lian Yu. That's how he learned.
Then we get the fight of the episode. Chris, that prison shower fight.
Man, we'd seen preview of it, very short one in the trailer, and it looked brutal there, and it was even more brutal on screen. Oliver's putting people's faces through brick walls. He's straight up kicking people in the face. He's being attacked by multiple guys, getting stabbed, and he's still holding his ground and doing a good job. And at the end of this fight in the shower, he's the last man standing and then gets cold cocked and knocked out. But brutal fight, one of the most brutal we've had in a while. I mean, it felt very John Wickish or Bourne Identity kind of fight, where it was a lot of the quick cuts, quick moves, and it was, oh man, it was awesome.
We basically got a naked Stephen Amell.
Sorry, ladies, he didn't show his tushy.
He showed an awful lot. I mean, there was a couple of shower scenes in there. Also, I want to point out the fight in the yard. I don't know what you call it, play yard, whatever. When the prisoners go outside and they're out in the yard, and he's just brutal. He uses the book that he has as a weapon, incapacitating one guy. And then he takes a 45-pound weight, and I'm sure it was just like rubber or whatever, but he takes
one hand.
Yeah, and starts whipping at this guy. I mean, if you hit a guy with a 40-pound weight in the head like Oliver Queen did, that guy's head is shattered.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of the show, it just knocked him down. And then he took it and then wailed on his ribs with the edge of it for a couple of times. So he's got completely broken ribs. And then he starts banging on his head with his fist. And then he, of course, stands down because that's all the time he has, because he was going to get tased or something after that. But
it's brutal. It's a man who's kind of sort of snapped and realized he's got to defend himself. And I remember the interviews with Stephen Amell during the Summer Con season where he said, there's a moment in this show where you're going to hate Oliver Queen. This was not those moments where he kind of snaps and is just beating the ever-living tar out of people with a plain look on his face like, this is what I got to do. No, it's something completely different where you're like, man, Oliver, what the hell happened to you? This is his redemption at the end where you're like, hey, Oliver, you're standing up for yourself finally.
Yeah, because earlier, Stanley, who is wanting Oliver's help, Oliver actually walks away as, the three guys are beating him up. And Oliver's like, I want to shorten my sentence. I don't want another strike. And then that visit from Felicity where she's like, I'm sending William off to Cambridge and I'm going to fight back. And that's when Oliver, he smudges those tally marks and he goes out to that prison yard. And I love how he uses the Count of Monte Cristo.
How appropriate.
And very appropriate for those of you who do not know this novel. It's very old, so spoiler alert. It's about a guy who gets framed for murder and gets sent to prison falsely and then escapes and plots his revenge and all that type of stuff. So it's a very appropriate book to use.
I was wondering what Stanley was doing in Supermax. And, he does mention he was framed for a brutal murder or something like that. So it makes sense why he was in there. But man, that guy, he's not going to last long.
So,
I mean, even with Oliver's protection.
Do you believe that's the case? Or do you believe he's in there to play mental games with Oliver Queen?
I do. And that's where I was going. I thank you very much, Chris.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take your point.
No, that's good. I'm glad somebody else thought about it, because I just don't believe that Stanley is in there just for that reason. He's in there to screw with Oliver.
I'm just suspicious of everything that's going on in the prison. That's all. So I'm coming through there and being like, what's the twist here? They want us to think that this is a guy who just wants his help, but I bet they're going some other path. And that's probably on purpose by them to have us be doubting everything that's going on in there, because what's up is what's down and what's left is what's right now, basically, because Oliver's walking away from fights. He's not putting guys down. He's letting innocents get beat up. So I think they're playing with that expectation of, I have no idea what's going on, and saying, we'll screw with you guys a little bit, make you second guess everything.
You know what? We have not seen the warden yet.
Oh man, I wonder who it's going to be.
I know.
Can they get James Lipton to do it?
Be awesome.
That was an Arrested Development reference. Sorry, guys.
We'll
So
see.
before we move on, what did we think of the quality of the fights of this episode?
Oh, it's Bam Bam. They were awesome.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. The fights that Oliver was in, there were some cuts in it, so it wasn't like a continuous fight. At least that's what I'm remembering. If I'm wrong, please let me know. But they were brutal. They were amazing. They were good enough to be on Arrow. They were good enough to be in Arrow season 1, season 2, at least. And I hope they keep it up. I understand why they might not be able to, because they were probably had some of this choreography going for months before they shot the episode. And they only have 8 weeks to shoot, or 8 weeks. They only have 8 days to shoot each episode. So that's learning your lines. That's learning the stage directions. That's learning new fight choreography. So I get it. You can't have tremendous fights every episode, but when you do, and you have these amazing fights like this is why people watch the show, because they know you have your heroes and you're following your heroes or protagonists, and you have your antagonists, Diaz. Oh my gosh. Can we talk about Diaz after we talk about the fights? Because, that was great. But yeah, I did enjoy the fights.
Yeah, seeing Diaz back. They've been looking for him for 5 months. Diggle is still at Argus, and he is burning their resources to find Diaz, but there he is. I mean, SP, what do you want to talk about when it comes to Diaz?
He is amazing. So Kirk Acevedo, who plays Diaz, is just an amazing actor. I've talked about it before. He is a good guy, and he plays a good bad guy. He can do both. He's not going to play a good guy in this show, not after everything that they've done and gotten him to the point that he is at. So he's playing a good bad guy. But I just came off of watching 12 Monkeys, where he flip-flopped. He was both. And in the end, he turned out to be good. And that was an amazing show, first of all. Second of all, Kirk Acevedo just made it even more amazing. And it's great seeing him again here. He makes every show he's on good. And I have no doubt that he is going to make this season good as well. I was kind of going back and forth thinking, is this another use of a villain that's too long? No, I don't think so. I think last season was not a great introduction to the character. It wasn't a great origin story. We talked about that last year, but it was an origin story. Now we know who he is. We know what he's trying to do. We know who he's trying to do it to. And it is just going to be a fun ride watching him and the Longbow Hunters against Team Arrow.
We find out Curtis is the head of R&D at Argus. Again, Dinah is the new police captain. Why don't we go? Oh, Laurel is somehow faking her way to be the DA. I guess she read, Law for Dummies.
I want to talk about that too. Because how the heck? The FBI knew that wasn't the real Laurel. How is she the DA for Star City?
To quote Neil, because plot.
It has to be, because there's no reason. They didn't give us any reason why this Laurel from another Earth, who they know is a bad person, gets to be the DA of Star City.
Who else wants the job?
Well, that's also true, because they all die.
We've talked about that before too. Any competent person in Star City, and we asked the showrunners last year, and they got back to us. Is that you did, Chris? Right? You remember that? You asked why would anybody actually stay in the city, and they came back and said because the people of Star City are hardy.
I believe it was James Bamford that actually got back to us on that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go. So they have answered that question officially. I'm not going to argue with the Bam Bam.
Fair point.
There is a twist to this. I don't want to. We have to talk about the twist before we talk about our theories about fake Green Arrow, because one of my ideas for fake Green Arrow comes from this twist.
Me too.
We get flashes of some guy on a boat, and the person who's the boat owner is like, "This is stupid. Why are we going?" And he's like, "I'll give you another $200,000 or whatever." Finds out we're on Lian Yu. We just can't quit Lian Yu. And
you guys were saying that the island didn't exist anymore. It so exists. It's there.
I did not say that.
I said it was blown to hell. I fully admit that. I mean,
Graves are still there. We still saw Robert Queen's name.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of convenient that the graves in the wood that's just leaning on top of the rocks hasn't moved in 20 years. I'll allow it.
Yes, we do find out it is 20 years in the future, because SP, who do we find on Lian Yu?
We find a person in a green suit.
Who is Roy Harper in the future. We're 20 years in the future. We get William and we get Roy. So I made the joke of, instead of old man Ollie, we're getting middle-aged Arsenal. So and William's got the hosen, which Oliver gave to Thea. Thea gave to Felicity. Felicity gave to William before he got shipped off to boarding school, which is a great way to get rid of a kid. Like, you're worried about the kid doing growth spurts, ship him off to boarding school.
How is boarding school safer than in Argus Witness Protection or other facilities where there's bodyguards?
Yeah.
If you send them to one of those ones that are protected for like diplomat kids and billionaire kids and all of those ones.
That's a good point. Maybe that is the case. But if Diaz wants to find him there, it's not like he found them in witness protection and hiding with relatively good Argus protection. I'm not sure the boarding school is going to be able to stop him, and I'm wondering if this comes into play later in the season.
And we know he has 3 excellent assassins with him. 3 assassins that even a Russian friend was afraid of in the last season finale.
So yeah, that's the new thing. We're getting flash forwards. We'll come back to that. So now, who is the fake Green Arrow? Chris, you have an idea.
Well, I think you and I are sharing the same idea. We get the reveal that the man on the island is William. It's Oliver's son 20 years in the future. We know that with Legends of Tomorrow and The Flash, time travel is possible. How interesting would it be if the fake Green Arrow in our modern day time is the William from the future who's come back to correct, I don't know, say Felicity or Oliver being killed by Diaz or something like that? They like to play with time travel. Who's to say they're not going to try and play with it here? Or maybe it's old Roy. I don't know.
And we got the same thing going on in The Flash with Nora, too. So I could see the parallel storylines
It's
there.
a recurring theme then.
Yeah. That's a good question. I was thinking that it was Roy, actually. And then I was really hoping it wasn't, because in my headcanon, he is with Thea and what's her name?
Nissa?
Nissa.
He's with Thea and Nissa right now. And for him to be separated from that, we've talked about before that we didn't want him to be separated from them in their quest, at least not this early. I could see 20 years from now, but not right now. I mean, give them the happily ever after and little quests and stuff like that.
Your headcanon is still potentially valid because we don't know where Roy is in modern day. That might be revealed in these flash forwards at some point in time, but the headcanon could still be valid. The thing I enjoy is we've got all this theory and speculation. Remember, we did this for Vigilante for a season and a half, trying to figure out who he was because they introduced him in one season, didn't reveal him until the next. They did say in an interview or an article I'd read that they will reveal who the fake Arrow is this season. So at least we don't have to go and wait like a season and a half this time. Now, conspiracy theories and thoughts, we'd love to have them. Send them in to us on who you think it is.
Yeah, because this fake Green Arrow actually has his version of the list, because there's other names, and Stent was one of them and actually crossed them out. So for me, it's like it's either present day Roy Harper from the future, William from the future, or some random person, because the writers have done that to us before.
Well, we know from past experience that Michelle will keep a running list, and we will go through the names until the identity is revealed to us.
I mean, do we want to put Diggle on the list?
No, they actually went through that because who was it? It was Renee, I believe.
Said, I thought it was you.
Yeah, and it obviously wasn't, because he couldn't have been there.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, I don't think it's Diggle, so I'm glad we agree. SP, is there anything else about the premiere you want to talk about?
I'm sure there's stuff that I forgot about. Agent Watson, she didn't make an appearance in this episode, unless I'm not remembering correctly.
She did not.
Yeah,
she was mentioned.
Yeah, so there's that, and you got to think a new mayor is going to pop out of the blue at some point in time, because our good Captain Dinah needs to be reporting to somebody, maybe a police chief again, but I don't know if they have that many people in Star City anymore. I don't know. I mean, it was a good season premiere. It has me psyched for the season, and especially after coming off of last season where they clearly miscalculated. I'm really hoping Beth does an amazing job. Beth Schwartz, the new showrunner. I mean, everybody's in her corner. The writer's room is in her corner. The fans so far that have interacted with her at panels are in her corner. So I'm really pulling for Beth here and see what she pulls out. And Bam Bam. Oh my gosh. Bam Bam. Direct more episodes, please. We love your episodes.
Chris?
It's just good. I don't have anything else I want to bring up, but this was what we needed for a lot of people who had been on the fence, myself included. I'd said that I was struggling after some of the moments of the past couple seasons, and this was good. It was intense. It was brutal. Giving Bam Bam the reins for the first episode back in to just do some incredible fight scenes was smart. Really smart.
I agree, and all I have to say is I got some shirtless Ollie.
There's also that.
And perhaps we'll get more shirtless Ollie in next week's episode, which is called The Longbow Hunters. It's season 7, episode 2. It will air Monday, October 22nd, 2018. Felicity is determined to find Diaz by any means necessary when Diggle tries to keep her on the outs, and Oliver is forced to ally with an old enemy. It's directed by Laura Belzy and written by Jill Blankenship and Rebecca Bellato.
Live from the Starling Tribune main news desk on floor 52 of the Starling Tribune Tower, it's the weekly news roundup with award-winning chief news anchor Michelle Ely. And now, Michelle Ely.
We have some Arrow news, and Chris is going to start us off with talk about the twist.
Yes, they talked a lot about the big twist that was going on. On Monday's Arrow's season premiere, we went back to the beginning and to the future. Through a series of flash forwards, we were introduced to Oliver's now adult son, William, as he arrived on Lian Yu. According to Beth Schwartz, when you're on a show for so long, the challenges are trying to tell new stories with your characters. But the new timeline, which picks up 20 years after the present day, has, quote, just opened up a huge world for us, and the creativity just poured in. Now the stories are endless, end quote. While the future glimpses won't be included in every episode, they will be present a lot in all season and series, revealed Schwartz, who was mum about any other details on the twist. So, guys, instead of flashbacks, it's flash forwards. They're not Oliver Queen-centric, but it's still going to be interesting. And some of the cast had been interviewed and said they were having a lot of fun getting to play with being aged up in future makeup. I believe it was the actress who plays Dinah was talking about that where I'd read that. So we're going to see some of Team Arrow aged up 20 years in the future, and could be fun.
I hope so. I have to admit, I'm a little leery So I'm going to have to. I'm putting my faith in Beth. Beth, I'm going to trust you and hope you handle this well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing an aged Juliana Harkvey, who's the actress that plays Dinah.
Thank you. I had a complete brain fart.
That's okay. But when it comes down to it, I'm loving the time shift. I always have in these shows or shows like Arrow. And that was one of the big appeals to Arrow in seasons 1 through 5. And we didn't really get that last season. I didn't think it was necessary last season, but I'm so glad they were able to bring it back and able to bring it back in a new light and one that we're excited for.
Well, we have more crossover news. A poster was released for Elseworlds, and it flips the scripts on the entire Arrowverse with this depiction of Barry Allen as Green Arrow and Oliver Queen as the Flash. That's neat. But I want to talk about this because fans have done their own versions. The first one, artist Boss Logic posted his latest Elseworlds creation to Twitter, imagining Grant Gustin, who's the Flash, suited up as the Man of Steel with Tyler Hoechlin playing the Flash. That was interesting. But my favorite. Of the various strange costume choices we have seen Stephen Amell take on so far as part of the upcoming Elseworlds crossover, there is one dark horse candidate for fan favorite that seems to keep coming up. Supergirl. That's right, fans are eager to see the ultra-masculine, stubble-chinned Green Arrow actor suit up in a skirt and long hair for the crossover. And while it almost certainly never happened for real, the magic of Photoshop has made it something that fans can enjoy. And I love it. Whoever did this, it's skilled. It's perfect. I would pay money to see Stephen Amell in the wig and the Supergirl costume. That would be amazing.
I think that one was also Boss Logic, if I remember when I saw it pop up on my Twitter feed the first time. But it's hilarious because you're like, what the heck?
Yeah, it was great. I think there's a lot of fan creativity for the DC CW shows, and we're seeing it. So I just hope that it keeps on going and we don't get caught in like doldrums around Thanksgiving time before the crossover. I hope that it is constantly fun between now and the crossover for all the shows.
Katie Lotz is also encouraging the Legends of Tomorrow fans to send in some of their mock-ups, and she had tweeted one that was her and Ray Palmer face swapped. And she was in the Atom suit and he was the White Canary. And I was like, okay, these are pretty funny. I like it. Keep them coming.
Katie Lotz is ripped. She posts her workout pictures all the time. My hat is off to her to be able to pull it off like she does.
She has abs on top of abs, it seems like.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's incredible being that well worked out to be that ripped.
Whoever recasts Sarah Lance as Katie Lotz, you deserve a huge bonus even today because that's just amazing.
Chris, you have a connection between the crossover and one of our favorite shows, Smallville.
That's right. So we're going to talk about the crossover a little bit more. We know it's called Elseworlds. Well, they're currently in the middle of shooting, and the people have been sending set photos in. We saw the Superman in a black version of his costume, first look of Lois Lane, but more photos have surfaced revealing that Stephen Amell and Grant Gustin were on the set of Clark Kent's Kansas homestead, and they are using the exact same farmhouse that Smallville used for the Kent homestead. So it'll be kind of fun to revisit the Kent homestead, and I wonder if they make it look the same inside or close to the same interior. It'd be just a nice little subtle shout out to Smallville.
I mean, it is the show that started it all. I wonder if we're going to get Mom and Paul Kent.
That'd be awesome. I wonder what Annette O'Toole and John Schneider are doing right now. Maybe they could come back for a cameo.
I've said before, I've only seen one episode of Smallville, and that's because Wing made me. And it was the episode where they had the Green Arrow on there. And yeah, that's just not my cup of tea compared to what we have today.
Yeah, you got to remember, it's a product of its time. It has not aged as well as it could have.
That's fine. I understand that. So don't hurt me or whatever, because I've only seen one episode. I do not have plans to go back and watch it, but we'll see. Maybe someday I'll be old and drooling in my hospital bed and this will be the only thing on.
Well, Smallville hasn't aged well, but Tom Welling certainly has.
That entire cast has.
Exactly. Well, that's what we have for Arrow news. I have a piece of Supergirl news. We are finally getting Lex Luthor. That's right. Superman's greatest nemesis will come to Supergirl sometime after the crossover. He has not yet even been cast and will not appear in the event. The addition of Luthor and Lois to Supergirl will likely get fans talking even more than they were before about the possibility of creating a Superman series featuring Tyler Hoechlin and Elizabeth Tulloch. The odds have never seemed particularly high given the necessary budget, but recent reports that Harry Cavill and Warner Brothers have parted ways and the current Superman film franchise is dead in the water may give the idea of bringing the Man of Steel to television more credence.
I mean, they're certainly doing a good job of using the crossover as a backdoor pilot for Batwoman and now presumably Superman, it looks like. And I'm kind of okay with it because I enjoyed Tyler Hoechlin's portrayal of Clark Kent when he was on there earlier. I'm kind of curious who's going to play Lex Luthor. Do you guys have any fantasy casting? If you could get the casting, who would you pick?
Well, there's the obvious, Michael Rosenbaum.
I had that on my list if he was willing to shave his head again. I had one more. I'll just throw it out there to spark conversation. Billy Zane. Let's go back and get P.T. Barnum himself. You shave his head, he'd be a pretty good Luthor.
He'd have to lose a little weight, I think.
And he's kind of... I don't know if he's young enough, because got to remember, Lena has already been cast, and so has their mother on Supergirl.
That's true.
So he's got to look somewhere in there.
Well, the mother is definitely older. Wow. Okay. That brings up how old. Yeah, you're right. Definitely. I'll have to think about it. I haven't put two thoughts.
I mean, Michael Rosenbaum's the easy pull for those of us that watch Smallville. You're like, bring him back. He was awesome. And he's aged appropriately to be Lex.
I mean, my favorite Lex goes back to the 79 Superman. So,
I mean, I would love to see Bryan Cranston in the role, but it wouldn't work for the Supergirl TV show because he's probably old enough to be Lena's father.
What you'd have to do is you'd have to go into the realm of like the current crop of reboots that are out there and get a age appropriate actor that has left their show, like maybe somebody from The 100 or somebody from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that has left the show and bring them on over. I think that would work great, but they would have to be local up in Vancouver too. So maybe some sci-fi.
They wouldn't have to be local. They would just have to be willing to
relocate potentially.
Relocate.
Yeah, I get that, but they would have to relocate. If you're going to play that character, you're going to be living up there for a year, at least, if not more. And especially if they do have a Superman show, you're going to be on there for several years.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily have to be a full-time as Lex Luthor, though. That's the thing. Depending on how they want to set it up. Because this is a Luthor who's already a criminal who potentially would have to be hiding to stay out of the spotlight.
Would it be on the same Earth as Kara?
Well, the implication, at least, is that they're trying to backdoor pilot the Superman that we've seen. It could be a Superman from another Earth, I suppose. But the implication was that it would be Superman we've met already.
Listeners, if you have a good idea of who you'd like to see cast as Lex Luthor, we would like to hear it. So go ahead and tweet us at Starling Tribune. That is at Starling Tribune on Twitter. Or go ahead and you can hit me an email, StargatePioneer@GonnaGeek.com.
Well, that's all we have for the news. And we actually have some feedback this week. I tweeted out that ending feels like Legend of Tomorrow got involved. Is again time travel. And Cajun Sean at Cajun_Sean replied that, or it's a quote flash forward #dammit
Appropriate.
And then I replied, instead of old man Ollie, I wonder if we're going to get middle-aged Arsenal.
That's interesting. So they did say, since we're talking about the time travel, there's another interview I'd read with Beth Schwartz where they said that this time travel is fixed and that it's not necessarily the same flash forward we got of like the Green Arrow 2047. So things are different than what we've seen in the future already. Who knows what's going to happen? It's time travel. My brain hurts already thinking about it. A lot.
Hey, we watch Legends of Tomorrow, so we know how to figure out time travel. We're pretty good at it.
Bebo loves us.
Hail Bebo.
Exactly. And we're not the only show that talks about, we're not the only podcast on the Gonna Geek We are not the only podcast on the GonnaGeek.com network that talks about TV or time travel. Chris, what is another podcast that we have on the network?
That's right. We've got tons of podcasts on the network, 25 plus. We can't tell you all about them, but we can say, hey, go check this one out. Here's another great quality show to check out. So the quality show we're talking about this week is Better Podcasting. Episode 151 is the podcast specialty episodes. In this show, the crew talk about what it takes to do podcast specialty episodes. Plus, they say farewell to Google Plus. That more in this week's show. Google Plus is gone. Rest in peace, Google Plus. So go check out what Steven and SP have to say about that on this most recent episode of Better Podcasting. Head on over to GonnaGeek.com and click on the network button. You'll find it right there. All that being said, though, it is time for us to start wrapping things up. So a big thank you to all of you who watched live on Geeks.live or on Twitter via Periscope, or who have also downloaded the audio podcast replay from StarlingTribune.com, or even gone to GonnaGeek.com, or excuse me, YouTube.com/GonnaGeek and caught the video replay. We greatly appreciate you guys checking out the show.
If you have an Amazon device, you can actually enable our podcast as a skill. Just say your activation word, whatever it is. I'm not going to say it and activate your device, but you can go ahead and say it and then say enable Starling Tribune skill, and it will go ahead and enable it. And you can have all sorts of play options. You can go back and forth between episodes. It is there for your enjoyment. And remember, you can always catch us live as we record at www.geeks.live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern and 4:30 p.m. Pacific on Thursdays.
We would love to hear from you. We are the Starling Tribune on Facebook and Instagram, at Starling Tribune on Twitter, and you can call us at 612-888-CAVE. That's 612-888-2283. Well, this brings us to the end of another great episode. Any last words before we sign off? At Stargate Pioneer.
Hashtag Aero Barista.
At the Chris Farrell.
I'm going to apologize in advance, but hashtag Bring Back Haas.
And I am at Michelle Ely signing off with hashtag Shirtless Ollie. Oracle, I think we're done here.
Do not bring back hashtag Haas.
This was the Starling Tribune. You can leave us feedback at GonnaGeek.com or check out our archive at StarlingTribune.com. Visit GonnaGeek.com for more podcasts. Music by Kevin MacLeod can be found at Incompetech.com. This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, stories, and situations are the property of Time Warner. No infringement is intended. We will see you for the next episode of CW's Arrow.